God's New King, Part 2, based on 1 Samuel chapters 21 through 24 and 2 Samuel chapter 1 verses 1 through 16, chapter 5 verses 1 through 10, and 2 Samuel chapters 6 and 7.
Saul grows jealous of David because he knows David has the Lord's favor. Saul chases after David because he wants to kill him. In the desert, he stops to rest in a cave, unaware that David and some of his men are hiding in the back of it.
Why doesn't David kill him? This is it, Uncle David. The Lord promised you would be king, and now the Lord has delivered the old king, helpless, into your hands.
David looks down at the king and thinks of all the times Saul has tried to kill him. Now the jealous king is at his mercy. But David only bends down and carefully cuts off a piece of the royal robe.
I understand he's your father-in-law. If you don't want to kill him, I'll do it for you.
No, he was chosen by God to be our king. It's not for us to decide when he will die.
After a while, Saul leaves the cave, and David calls after him.
My lord, the king!
David!
Why do you keep hunting me? I mean you no harm. See this piece of cloth? I cut it from your robe. I could have killed you, but I didn't. My father, if I have wronged God, let him judge me. But how have I wronged you?
I am ashamed. You are a better man than I am, David. I will go and leave you alone.
Saul leads his army away, but a short time later, David learns that Saul has forced Michal, David's wife, to marry another man. This shows David that Saul has not forgiven him. Word comes, too, that after many years of serving the Lord, the prophet Samuel has died. David goes into hiding in Judah.
Lord, you said I would be king. Now here I am, an outlaw, all alone in a cave. I trust you, but I don't see that I'm much of a king. A real king has an army, prophets, and priests. I only have a sword. That's too big for me.
News of David's whereabouts spreads quickly. 400 men, refugees, homeless, and his relatives, join him in exile.
King Saul has declared you an outlaw, but we want to fight for you.
Then fight for me you shall. We will protect the poor people of Judah in the name of the Lord.
Eventually, David thinks of his own future. Now that Saul is dead, David knows that he can return from exile. But before he makes any plans, he prays to God.
Lord, shall I return now to my own people in Judah?
God tells David to go home, and when he does, the people of Judah welcome their hero and make him king of their tribe.
God bless King David.
Long live the king!
Hail, King David of Israel!
Praise God!
As king of all Israel, David decides to set up a new capital city in Jerusalem. The good news, Jerusalem is on the border between Israel and Judah, so David won't show favoritism by living there. The bad news, it's already inhabited by enemies of Israel, and no one has ever been able to conquer it.
Even if we were lame and blind, we could defend this city from the likes of you!
Whoever can capture this city will be the commander of all my armies.
Deal.
That night, Joab and some of his men find the waterway that leads out of the back of the city.
Yuck! Crawling through the sewers. We'll be unclean for a month after this.
We have no choice. The outside defenses are impregnable. Jerusalem must be taken from within.
Surprised by the sudden appearance of David's men, the guards are quickly overcome.
Give the order to open the gates or die.
The terrified officer shouts the order. The huge gates swing open, and David's army charges through. Jerusalem is now his, and almost without a fight. Jerusalem is now the capital city of Israel, but David wants a spiritual capital as well. It is time to give the Ark of the Covenant a permanent home. Ever since the Philistines tried to capture the Ark, it has been kept in Kiriath Jearim. David wants it brought to Jerusalem. Unfortunately, the Israelites have forgotten God's instructions for moving the Ark. As they transport it in an ox cart, the oxen stumble. One of the guards reaches out to keep the Ark from falling and touches it. He is killed instantly because God's law allows only a Levite to touch the Ark. David leaves the Ark nearby until God gives him permission to bring it to Jerusalem. When David tries again to bring the Ark to Jerusalem, he pays attention to the Lord's instructions. He assembles all the priests of Israel with instructions that only the Levites may touch the Ark. The procession is accompanied by the finest musicians in the land, who play and sing songs of praise to the Lord.
Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever.
Let the heavens rejoice. May the earth be glad. Sing for joy to the Lord, because he rules in righteousness. Give thanks to the Lord. Call on his name. Let all countries know what he has done. Sing his praise. Seek his face, and never forget his wonders.
When they reach Jerusalem, David is so overjoyed that he dances and sings at the front of the parade.
Lift up your heads, you mighty gates. Open so the King of glory may enter.
The Levites put the Ark in a tent in the center of the city. But that doesn't feel proper to David. He calls the prophet Nathan in for a discussion.
It doesn't feel right for God's house to be in a tent while I live in a palace. I'd like to build a temple to God.
That sounds like a great idea. I'm sure God would be pleased.
But the next day,
David, wait! God spoke to me last night. He said that his temple must be a house of peace, and you have been forced to be a man of war. You cannot build a new house for him. But don't worry. One of your sons will be a man of peace, and he will build a house for God someday.
Great is the sovereign Lord for giving me such a promise. Thank you, O God, and with your blessing, my house will be blessed forever.